Hi everybody, welcome back to Bentley House. I'm Aira and today we are back in the prompt book. This is prompt number 8, I believe. And opening it up, I see that we have the word window. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to place this window right here. I'll leave a link in the description box below to last week's video, and that's it. I hope you guys have a great week. I'll see you next time. Bye! Just kidding. We'll go ahead and turn to another page and we will save window for another week. I am not in the mood to make any more windows at the moment. So turning to another page, I think we are going to do storm. And of course, usually if you've seen these videos before, I like to sketch my ideas, but nothing was coming to mind except for my dog. If you've been following my videos, you know that my dog's name is Stormy. And so I started thinking about, is this cheating? I don't know, but we're just going to go with it. And my sister recently got these portraits of her animals, which are a really big thing right now. I don't know if you've seen them advertised, but I thought it would be really fun to paint a portrait of Stormy in this kind of vintage Renaissance style. So first thing first, I need to get some pictures of Stormy. She is an 8-month-old puppy, so wish me luck. After getting a photo that I thought would work, I looked up a painting that I really liked and I photoshopped them together. I actually really like how the Photoshop image came out, and I could probably just frame this, but it is not near as fun as oil painting itself, so we're gonna give it a try. The first thing I need to do is I want to trace this image onto some paper. I've printed it out the size that I want it to be. If you're new to this channel, you may not know that I make miniatures, and so that is why I'm creating a miniature painting. This could possibly go into one of my dollhouse scenes in the future. So all I'm going to do is put it onto my light table, untangle the immense amount of cord, and plug it in. This is going to allow me to see the painting behind my paper, and I am putting this on cardstock. I prefer to paint on top of cardstock. I feel like in miniature, a canvas material is just a little bit too textured. The texture doesn't read right in miniature, so I like to paint on top of cardstock. I like to have another copy of the picture right next to the one I'm working on. It is a little hard to see some of the details through the cardstock, so I find that it's helpful, especially since Stormy has a lot of very dark features with black fur. It was really helpful to have that other picture right next to what I was tracing. Now I'm darkening my lines because I am going to gesso over the lines that I just created. I probably could gesso first and then draw the lines, but for some reason I prefer to do it this way. I'm using gesso to prime the surface of the cardstock. This is going to create a nice painting surface for the oil paints I am about to lay down. It may look like the pencil lines are going to be a little bit difficult to see, but once it dries, I can see them really well through the gesso itself. I really love oil painting. I've done oil painting in the past, but I do not like the fumes and the smells. So I invested in some water-soluble oil paints. They're not exactly the same as original oil paints. They don't work the same, and you will see that later on in this video. But I do like that I can just use water and I still get the same effect as oil painting most of the time. I'm also going to be pulling out my mini brushes, really tiny, because this is a tiny detailed painting. I need to make sure I have small brushes. I'm going to be using titanium white, ivory black, cadmium yellow, alizarin crimson, and a sap green. So those are the colors I see in this picture, and the reason I'm using green, I know you don't see green, but I'm using the green with the red to mix to make a brown. For my palette, I'm just taking some old cardboard from a snack food box. I wrapped it with some wax paper and I cut it this size so that it fits inside of this snapware. And the reason I'm doing this is because I will be working on this over several days, and oils don't typically dry out, but this keeps them from drying out more than usual. So I just like to protect my oils so I don't waste anything, basically. So now I'm going to mix up a few colors to get started, and I know you shouldn't mix with your brush. I was being lazy. Later on I will use a palette knife, but the first thing I'm going to do when I start oil painting is laying down just the first layer, and this is going to include the background. My painting here is going to end up a lot brighter than the original, which is fine with me. But right now I'm just playing around with the colors. I really like that there is kind of a glow around the face, and so that is what I am trying to create here. I started with the yellow closer to the face, and then I did the darker alizarin crimson towards the outside, and then I'm just going to slowly go back and forth, blending it together until I like the effect. The opposite side of the portrait is going to be a little bit easier because it's just straight crimson color, and I think I did mix this crimson with just a little bit of black just to make it darker, but this other side is just the plain crimson. I might have added a little yellow in that very little bit, yeah, right underneath the ear, just to kind of make it look like it all goes together, but I just focused really hard on that glow on the right side, and then it was pretty easy on the left side. And here is the comparison. I can already tell it's going to be a little bit brighter, but seeing as it's a miniature, I'm okay with that because I think the brighter colors will help it read. Now I'm starting work on the dress itself. I'm going to go really slow, laying down the base colors, and I want to make the dress just a little bit brighter. This is the straight alizarin crimson without adding in any black, and that is going to create the base for my dress. I know you can't see the original photo, but I have it right off to the left, and then I have my mixing palette on the right, and all I'm doing is going back and forth looking at the original colors and then trying to use the colors that I have to mix those colors and put it all together onto the painting. The reason I'm only using a few colors is I find that a limited palette really makes the painting come together. If I had tried to pick every individual color out, like picked out an orange, picked out a cream, sometimes those colors end up looking a little off. So if I can mix those colors with a fewer amount of base colors, everything seems to blend together a lot better. In this picture, I was really worried about Stormy's face and her eyes because her hair is, most of her hair, her fur, is black, and then she has her very dark black eyes. Sometimes it doesn't even look like she has eyes. So I had to be very careful with how I did her face. She does have a nice white amount of fur around her nose and then down the front of her, like off to the side. But her face and around her eyes is just very, very dark. And so I went ahead and just painted the area without the eyes, and so she kind of looks like she's staring into your soul at the moment. But I wanted this all to dry just a little bit before I went in and worked on the eyes. So now I'm going to let this wait for about 12 hours. I'm packing away my palette, and I will be back after the first layer has dried a bit. It's now 12 hours later, and I am ready to give Stormy some eyeballs, so she's just looking a little bit better. So I'm making sure that I keep just a tiny sliver of white at the bottom. Whenever she looks up, you can see the whites of her eyes, and so I wanted to make sure that there was just the tiniest bit left so that she had some definition on where her eyes are. Now I'm going back and forth with some white and black, trying to get the details. I'm looking at the highlights and the shadows that I see in the original picture to try and sculpt out her face from basically just paint. While I take a break on working on the fur, I want to do some details on the dress. There's a lot of wrinkles in the arm, and so I made kind of a very light purple wash, and I'm using that to create the sleeve wrinkles along both sides, and then also some shadows where the fabric would have been tucked in, like under the arms. And then I also want to make sure that I create a shadow where the top of that beige shirt hits her fur. I want to make sure I make that a distinctive edge because she does have a very light colored fur right there against a light colored shirt. To create the very fine detailing, I'm not putting a ton of detail in here. I'm using very watered down yellow, and it's clumping up a little bit, and for me, I thought that looked like very fine embroidery, and so that's all I'm doing. I'm just painting really clumpy, watered down yellow, and it looks like embroidery on the dress. Now I'm creating a little bit of shadow in the white fur. Obviously the white fur isn't completely white, and so I created a very light shade of gray, and I'm going to add that here and there, and then again go back to the face, just going back and forth trying to balance out the white and the black of her fur. The hat was really fun to play around with because, again, there's a lot of detailing in the embroidery, and I'm using the same effect I did on the dress. I'm going to slow it down in a second so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just painting the shapes that I see on the hat, and again, I'm just using that clumpy, watered down, orangey yellow, and when it dries, it looks like very fine embroidery on the hat and on the dress. And I really love this outfit. I love this painting that I chose. I think it's a really beautiful set of clothing, so I was really excited I chose this. So that's it for Stormy. This is her painting. It went pretty quickly, actually. I think that's partly due to the fact that it's a miniature, but I really like how it turned out. I like her face. She looks a little worried, but you know, whenever sometimes she looks worried. So it's pretty indicative of her her personality. I think if we put her in a dress, that's exactly how she would look for sure. Now, I don't know if you've been here for very long, you might remember my dog Audrey. She passed away last summer, and so I couldn't do this video without including my sweet Audrey girl. So I picked out another painting for her, one that I thought complemented the colors of Stormy's painting, because if I do decide to hang these in my projects, I can hang them together. Again, I photoshopped her picture along with the oil painting that I found, and I believe this one was a Dutch oil painting, and I just really liked the colors and I thought that they complemented the original. So again, with the background, I am working on the dark part, which is on the left, and then a lighter part that's around the back of the head on this particular painting. And then I'm going to go in and do the first layer just like I did for Stormy. I'm just doing the first layer of all the colors all the way around the outfit. You may remember earlier in the video I said that the water-soluble oil paints don't always act like actual oil paints using it with an oil. This is where you will see it. I've slowed this down so you can see. For some reason, my black oil paint did not want to mix with my, like, the mustard color there. And I end up struggling with this corner of the painting the entire time I am working on this. I'm not quite sure what's happening here, but it didn't want to cooperate. So I just moved on. There was lots of other stuff to work on. So my idea was that I was going to let that area dry a little bit and then try again the next day. Audrey's face was a little bit more difficult, I think, than Stormy's because basically she's just all white or like a very light cream color, and so I had to work really hard on those shadows. 12 hours later, I let the base layers dry again, and still in this corner, this paint did not, it didn't want to work. So I ended up mixing some brown. I thought maybe it was something going on with the black paint, which was working fine everywhere else, I don't know. So I mixed some of the green and the red together, and I was going to make a very dark brown instead of using black, and that did not want to work either. And I was just getting really frustrated with it. It wasn't blending at all. The nice thing about oil paints is that they blend really, really nicely, and you can blend it all day and it looks beautiful, but for some reason it didn't want to. So while I pondered what I was going to do there in the corner, I went back and worked on some of the fur detail in the face, trying to get the right proportions and the right shadows. And then I also worked on the really interesting shirt. I really liked it because it has like all these straight pleats in it, which was really cool. And then I made sure to give Audrey her red heart collar piece that she always had. And I thought that was a really cute detail to add in there. So once I got back to the corner arm, I decided to just go ahead and start over. I was thinking maybe I could blot up, like if there was too much water, I could blot the water up, but it was still dry, so I just started scraping all of that stuff away, and I decided to let it dry just a little bit longer while I worked on some details, and then I was going to just start fresh in that corner. I used the same embroidery detail that you saw me use on Stormy's painting, and I just kind of lightly dabbed yellow there, and then I made sure to add the little paw fur where the hand was, and I just made that like a little furry paw at the bottom. So again, this corner things are not going well, so I just decided to put a ton of thick paint there, and I'm just gonna force it to work. I decided I wasn't going to leave that corner until I got it to work, and I can't really tell you what I did to make it work. I mean, it still isn't the best, but I don't think it's as much of an eyesore as it was before. I just kind of forced it to do what I wanted, and so that area there probably has the thickest amount of paint because I just started like chunking it on there to kind of cover up whatever was happening below it. I started adding a lot more shadows because I realized there were some deep shadows in the original painting, and I wanted to make sure that it looked okay. So now, while I'm waiting for the paintings to dry, I decided to clean my mat because while I was editing the first part, I thought, wow, my mat needs to be cleaned. So if it was bothering you, it was bothering me too. So now we're going to work on the frames of the paintings because you can't have a nice, beautiful antique oil painting without a nice frame. I'm taking some various size basswood pieces and I'm going to glue them together before I cut out the pieces of the frame. I thought maybe this would be the easiest way to do it, and it ended up being pretty easy, so I think I'll do it this way again. I glued the smaller piece onto the larger piece. I let it dry, and then it kind of created this like stair-step frame effect. And then for the other one, I'm making two different frames. For the other one, I glued 3 different pieces of basswood together, and this one has kind of a 3 stair-step effect on it, and they'll be a little bit easier to see once I start cutting out the frames. All I'm going to do is use the original print that I printed out. I'm going to use my Easy Cutter, which I always get questions about, so I'll leave an affiliate link below if you want to check it out. This is one of my favorite tools. If you're working with wood, it's a must-have for sure. I can turn it to a 45-degree angle, cut through the wood, and now I have a piece that is going to start creating my frame. To keep going, I'm just going to have to mark the inner corner of the other side with my pencil, and then I can use my Easy Cutter again. All I have to do is turn it for the other way 45 degrees, and then it will cut through the piece again, giving me a perfect 45-degree angle. I'm going to do this on all 4 sides of my printout, and this will give me 4 pieces that should make up a frame that perfectly fits the size of this piece. Here's my 4 pieces. I'm going to be using tacky glue to glue it all together, just so that these edge pieces come together. I'm going to let that dry really good before I paint it. Both of my frames are going to get a nice base coat of brown. This one I'm just going to do one single line of gold that goes around the raised piece, and then the other frame is actually going to be painted entirely gold. I'm going to try and figure out which one of these looks best on which painting, and I think the one that has a little bit of brown in it looks best on Audrey's portrait, and the gold one looks best on Stormy's portrait. I'm going to glue those down with tacky glue. Make sure that they're laying flat. I even put something heavy on it, so I made sure that they laid flat. And then I can take my X-Acto blade and cut around the paper, and I have a perfectly framed miniature. And this scared me because I forgot that I had taped the picture to trace, and I was like, why is there an Audrey under the Audrey painting? But I remembered. I figured it out. But here we go. Here is Audrey's painting, all completely framed. I think she's looking very regal, as she should. And here is Stormy's painting, still looking a little nervous about what's going on, but I think she's absolutely adorable. And yeah, I really like how these turned out. I think they were really fun and will be something I'll hold on to. I have some other paintings I've made in other videos, so I thought it would be really fun if I hung them up and made like my own little art gallery in my home. This is one of Stormy's favorite spots, and so I was thinking, let's make an art gallery. I hung up each painting and I printed out a little name card to go with each painting, and I thought I could play a fun game called Let's See How Long It Takes My Husband to Find the New Art Installation. As of right now, it's been up for a day and he hasn't noticed, so once he finally noticed, I'll let you know how many days it was in the description below. But you know, in each art gallery you have to have at least one that's untitled. Some of you may recognize that these are some Addams Family portraits, and I will eventually put them into the Addams Family project, but for now they can hang out and be on display. Why be in a box when you can have your artwork up where you can enjoy it? So if you want to participate in prompt number 8, I kind of messed it up. I mean, you can do based off of the original word storm. If you want to do something based off the word storm, go for it. But if you also want to do something based around your pet, like a painting or something, go for it. You just have to tag me on Instagram with Bentley House Prompts, or send me a message on my Facebook page at Bentley House Minis to be included in the next video. And thank you to the following people who participated in prompt number 7, Robot. If you missed that video, it was all about using things you already had to create something new, and oh my goodness, these brought me such joy. So many people created amazing robots with the best little personalities and used things that they already had, and I think that's what made them so different and so unique. Some people used beads like I did. Some people used things that they found like locks or typewriter pieces or just all sorts of things around the house, and they all came out so amazing. And this is by far my most favorite prompt that we've done yet. I know we've only done 7, but I really enjoyed these. They just brought a big smile to my face, and thank you guys so much for participating. Go check these guys out. The next thing is, I missed one of the prompts that came up. She did it like 7 weeks ago. She was fully on time, so please forgive me, Monarch Butterfly 78. She did the prompt treasure, which was wonderful, and we had a new one for the clock prompt, which was this one that actually glows in the dark. So thank you guys so much for joining me in this video. I had so much fun. I look forward to seeing what you guys create. One last little thing, I did an interview with a publication called Miniaturist Bridge. I will leave a link to that in the description if for some reason you wanted to know a little bit more about me. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!